We often, we distinguish several different kinds of law in the Bible. When God gave the law to Israel, it was the only law code that they had. So every purpose for which you might have a law code was served by that one law code. And so in it were civil commandments, like what do you do with somebody who steals? What is the punishment if somebody kills? How do you determine guilt if someone is accused of adultery? Those kind of things. Civil law, criminal law, that was in the law. And then ceremonial law, and that was how do you worship God? So the sacrifices and the states of ritual purity, if you were going to approach God to worship him, if you were going to approach his house, if you were going to eat food from his altar, etc., you had to be in a state of ritual purity. What would make you clean? What would make you unclean? That's the ceremonial law. And then there was the moral law of God, absolute right and wrong. The first two are specifically historically located. The first one is given to Israel because Israel actually is a nation. You know, they're not just a society like the church living within other nations. Israel is itself a nation and needs to have civil law of its own. The ceremonial law is needed because of the way that God introduced himself to Israel in the Old Testament with the sacrifices and the purity, teaching them at the national level to expect certain things when the Christ would come, and giving principles and templates for Christ to satisfy and fulfill. Like, for instance, the sacrifices, which cover sin in the Old Testament, the animal dies instead of you, pave the way for Christ to be understood, who will come and he will die instead of you. And he will be the ultimate sacrifice, because as the book of Hebrews says, the blood of bulls and goats never actually could take away sins. This was a stopgap measure God gave to Israel to prepare for the sending of the God-man, whose blood actually could atone for sins. But it teaches Israel, and it gives Israel a hope to live by in the meantime, so that Israel doesn't just have law with no gospel. The law tells them, shows them that they have gone astray and that God has the right to punish them, but it also explains to them a way of salvation, a way of forgiveness, so that their hope from the beginning can be in forgiveness offered by God through sacrifice rather than through their own good works, and which is also perfect preparation for Christ.